Very much for having me. When I was trying to decide what kind of talk I would do for RMCF, I thought back to when I first started coming here, and it was hard for me to remember when that was exactly, but it was roughly 8 years ago. And, I've learned a lot from the various speakers we've had here. It's been a great resource for me to learn material to share with the world and to help me in my ministry to be able to give this presentation to different groups. So I thought, I'll take all this and do a best of creation, use my favorite slides over the years. And also, I have a website, evolutionfairytale.com, and I've got a guest book there, and I've got some real interesting quotes I've gotten from skeptics that I'm going to share with you as we interdisperse as we go through this presentation. Okay, here's one guest book entry from 2003. To assume that the Bible and creationism are absolutely true is about as jaw-crackingly stupid as insisting that the earth is flat or the moon is made of cheese. There are few universal truths out there, and chief among them is truth is relative. I think that kind of speaks for itself. Is he absolutely sure that it's a universal truth, that truth is relative? Okay, so these are really cool pictures. That's why they're in this presentation. I don't know if you've seen these. These are pictures, I believe, from the shuttle. Here's one that I find interesting. See if my little pointer works. See, right there is South Korea. It's interesting what worldviews and can affect governments. There's no light there with North Korea. United States, pretty neat little image. Here's a little bit, another view of the United States. That little dark area right in the middle of is Arkansas. Oh, just kidding. Here's another really neat one. He drew a circular horizon on the face of the waters at the boundary of light and darkness. Did anybody here see Bill Browning's talk on light, Jesus and light? It was probably about 3 years ago. We only have about 4 or 5, so Bill, you have to give it again because it was a great talk. So if you think about the attributes of light, it's good, it's incorruptible, it's necessary for life. It doesn't change. It represents power and energy, and it's eternal. Doesn't it remind you of someone? I am the light of the world. And again, I encourage Bill to give that talk again. It's been long enough, and it was a fantastic presentation. This is probably one of the most popular verses for creationists. God is a creationist. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who suppress the truth and unrighteousness, because what may be known of God is manifest in them, for God has shown it to them. For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made. So God's evidence for creation, he appeals to the creation itself. We know that somebody built this building, right? We can see design and structure. We don't think a tornado hit a junkyard, a lumber yard and built this building. Common sense. He says that people who deny this will be without excuse. Now, he's not mincing words here. It's not going to be, what about chimps and humans share 97% DNA? It kind of was a little bit of an excuse, right? Well, no, we'll go through all the illusions of evolution later in the talk. Men will be without excuse. So let's jump right into probably the most popular slide series, especially with teenagers and young kids. Just consider the giraffe. And actually, I got this one when I first started listening to Bob Inyart years ago. He gave this example of the giraffe. It has a heart that weighs over 24 pounds and pumps 16 gallons a minute. Why does it need to do that? Because, it's a giraffe. We know from physics, fluid mechanics, that you need an exponential proportion of pressure to move things up against gravity. So you need a huge heart. Here's the interesting thing. So if you've got this huge heart pumping tremendous amounts of pressure, what happens when the giraffe puts his head down? It really wouldn't be that pretty of a sight. Think of millions of years of this thing trying to get it right. Okay, but here's the interesting thing, is the giraffe has valves in its neck so that when it puts its head down, those valves shut so that this doesn't happen. That design has to be in place from the beginning, right? And what's more interesting, or additionally interesting, is in its head, it has blood vessels that are very elastic. So It has a pool of blood, so when it puts its head down, it doesn't pass out from lack of oxygen, so it can get a drink of water for quite a long period of time. And then finally at the feet, the blood vessels are very thick and much less elastic. It's quite an elaborate design. Very hard for evolutionists to explain how this would evolve over time. It has to be in place from the beginning. Charles Darwin offered the following test for his theory, and this is related to symbiosis, which I'll speak to in a moment. If it could be proved that any part of the structure of any one species has been formed for the exclusive good of another species, it would annihilate my theory, for such could not have been produced through natural selection. We have found all kinds of symbiosis examples now in nature. It's amazing. One of my favorites is the cleaner fish and the shark or other large fish. This shark will only allow one kind of fish in to clean its teeth. And that's a symbiotic relationship. So at what point in evolution did the fish realize, this little cleaner guy, hey, I'm gonna just dive right into that shark's mouth with all that blood on his teeth that just got done with the movie Jaws, and sorry. So if evolution is true, then when did they figure out to let this thing happen, this relationship, because they benefit each other? Another favorite of mine, this is actually out of my, I have a saltwater aquarium at home, and this is an anemone with clownfish. And only the clownfish can go in the anemone. Other fish that get near it and touch it, they get stung. In fact, I have a finger anemone that actually ate one of my fish. It got too close. So this is a symbiotic relationship. When I feed the tank, those fish go up and get food and bring it down and feed the anemone. You know what's really cool? When I took this picture, I had no idea there was a little starfish, but see that right there? Isn't that cool? It's amazing what shows up in your fish tank. I didn't buy that starfish. It just somehow was in the live rock that I bought probably. Here's another test that Darwin offered. If it could be demonstrated that any complex organ existed which could not possibly have been formed by numerous successive slight modifications, my theory would absolutely break down. So I'm going to show you a video clip here of this flagella motor. It's amazing. It's proton powered, 100K revolutions per minute, and it requires 40 different proteins to function. And another thing to bear in mind while you're watching this short video is that you can fit 8 million of these bacterial motors in the cross-section of an average human hair.